from the News Channel 5 network. This is Open Line.
Good evening, I'm Hannah McDonald, and you are watching Open Line. Thank you for joining us tonight. An amazingly interesting topic ahead, something that affects all of us, weather. We're going to be talking about severe weather and the anxiety it can bring on. We have Samuel Rainey joining us. He is a licensed therapist and counselor, and over the next few weeks, he will be offering 2 sessions with a coworker on dealing with severe weather anxiety. Samuel, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks. Glad to be here. This is a great time of year to address this topic, and hopefully this will give people some preparation and some insight into maybe how to take care of some of their anxieties around storms.
Yes, only 2 weeks ago we were recognizing the anniversary of the deadly tornadoes that came through our area last year, so this certainly is timely. And we've also just been talking about a Storm 5 weather alert this week. So let's jump right in. For some of those people that might not know that severe weather anxiety exists, can you tell me about some of those feelings that bad weather can bring on?
Yeah, I think one of the primary aspects of storm-related anxiety that I think affects all of us, whether we feel it immensely or not, is that, weather is this uncontrollable force on our lives. And generally, when we feel anxiety in any aspect of life, we're kind of facing the reality that we are limited humans and that we don't have the control that we want, or we don't have the influence that we want in our lives. And so when we see those weather alerts pop up, or we see the thunderclouds rolling in, or we hear the big storms begin to kind of creep into our neighborhood, it's not uncommon to have these feelings of being out of control that manifest themselves as anxiety. And I think as we've all experienced kind of the anniversary of the deadly tornadoes, and then probably even before that, other tornadoes that have hit our areas, or perhaps some of us have experienced really bad weather in our past. I think that the remembrance of that is kind of creating some, and for some people, some PTSD around the remembrance of these tornadoes that took place a little over a year ago. And we've got the potential for storms tomorrow night, and so I think that the anxiety is something that is what we need to pay attention to and begin to help ourselves and to help the people that we love to be able to take care of some of those anxieties in some ways that give us a little bit more influence on what we're feeling as storms are approaching.
I'm so glad that you said it is not uncommon to have some of these feelings, because some may look at others who enjoy stepping out onto their porch and looking at the sky changing colors and think, I don't have that same feeling. It makes me nervous. Can you explain, what you are hearing and why you have decided to hold 2 therapy sessions? They will be over Zoom, one on Friday and one next Friday. Why is it important that people talk about this together?
Yeah, so I'll share a little personal anecdote. I think historically I've been one that has really enjoyed storms. And when I say enjoy it, I think I have an awe and a respect for the magnitude of what storms can do. Certainly I don't like, and I really dislike the impact that they can have on communities, on families, the damages they can do to both structures, but also family structures of death and injury. I'm not a big fan of that. And I think I began to kind of tap into some of my own fears around storms when I started having kids. And I think what that really illuminated for me was the impact of what a storm could do on the people that I love the most, and that I feel like I'm here to kind of take care of. And so while I still have a fascination, like a real interest in how storms take place and the magnitude of them, I too deal with some fear and anxiety around it, because there's nothing I can do if a storm is barreling down, on us. So I think the kind of the personal part about that for me is that I want to help other people be able to name and to be able to talk through what it is that they're dealing with in their own lives about storms. I can remember when I was probably 5 or 6 years old, and we had a tornado that was coming near our house growing up. And I remember my parents woke us up, they threw us in the bathroom, and they had a twin mattress that they threw over us in the tub. And of course, 5 or 6 years old, I thought this was the coolest thing that was ever happening, right? Like, we're getting to get up in the middle of the night, and we got this mattress that's getting thrown on top of us. But this tornado struck 2 blocks away from our house. And I remember walking down the neighborhood the next day and just seeing the absolute destruction that was taking place, and realized, that this is not fun and games. And certainly is what we experienced, a year ago, that it completely can change the way communities look and the way that our families look and that sort of thing. So we're going to be hosting these 2 process groups. They're not therapy groups, but they're just going to be a place for people to be able to show up and tell their story. And to be able to talk about maybe what their experience was like in the deadly tornadoes from a year ago, or any other storm or any other really difficult situation that they've been a part of, dealing with weather or things like that have taken place in their life.
Well, we welcome anyone to call us tonight and talk about maybe something in their past, a testimony, or questions they might have about the process session. I'm so glad you mentioned overnight, because Tennessee actually ranks as #1 for overnight tornadoes. And that is a time when most of us have our guard down. We're at home, we've got our comfy clothes on, we've had dinner, we're relaxing, and it can bring on a whole other mystique, to be caught in the dark in an event like this. We actually have someone on the line. We've got Ron, I believe, who was just waiting to speak to us. Ron, do you hear us? I think that we may have. Ron, do you hear us? You're on the line with Samuel Rainey, who is talking about severe weather anxiety. We're going to try and get back to our callers very soon. But how about we move on and talk about children? Because I know that you brought up that this can bring on some feelings with kids, and they may not actually understand the seriousness until families talk to their children about it. What should parents do? Tomorrow we do have some weather in the forecast. Yeah,
so I think one of the most difficult things as a parent, but then also as I talk to parents about what they deal with, is that we want to bring our kids up in a safe world, and we want to raise our kids without them having to experience pain, suffering, loss, or anything like that. And so I think one of the things that we can do as parents, given how out of control we are and we can't do anything about the weather, I think is really to invite our kids into talking about what they feel about storms coming, and to not shush them, or to not tell them that it's going to be okay, or to not tell them things that we can't deliver on. Because, I think, and this kind of gets into some more parenting issue things, right? But trust is one of the foundations of a good parenting relationship. And so if we parents are not really telling our kids the age appropriate truth about storms and about maybe what's going to be happening or what's kind of coming down the road, that our kids aren't going to trust us, and they're gonna have anxiety about not trusting us in regards to what's taking place. So I mentioned age appropriate. So it's going to be difficult to kind of throw a large swath as to this is the way the information needs to be presented. But I've got kids ranging from 9 to 18, and certainly the conversations I have with my 16 and my 18-year-old are very different than the ones I have with my 9-year-old. But I still think that the issue of bringing about truth to them and letting them know, hey, here's the potential, but here's what we're going to do to prepare for things, and here's how we're going to handle if a storm does arise. We've all been in school where there's been tornado drills, or maybe for some of us who were raised in more earthquake-prone areas, they have earthquake drills. And so I think for parents, especially in leading up to the potential of severe weather, is to just kind of begin to invite the kids into the process about what they're going to do when a storm hits. Make sure they know where the safe room is, make sure they know that if they get woken up in the middle of the night, to not ask questions, to not do what kids tend to do and say, let me go back to sleep, or just leave me alone, I'm really tired, something like that. But that if there's a storm, that the kids need to just automatically trust the parents and come with them to wherever that safe room is going to be.
Age-appropriate conversations are so important about so many topics. I mean, with this pandemic, we all know that we need to have the right conversation with the right audience. Speaking of audience, we've got someone else on the line. I've got Mike. Mike, you are on live on Open Line with Samuel Rainey. Hey, Mike, do you have a question? You are live on Open Line.
Yeah, I'm 73 years old, and I've got a real bad phobia about tornadoes. When I was in the 6th grade, we lived in Arkansas, and we had a tornado, come near this town we lived in. And I think I got this phobia from my mom, and I never was scared of storms, nothing like that. But then the older I got, the more, I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and I think in 1998, a F3 came through downtown Nashville, and I live a couple miles away from that.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's like when they start flashing on the bottom of the screen, we've got a tornado warning and stuff like that. I started getting a real bad anxiety attack.
Right. It can be a distant memory, but it comes right back. Something also like a siren. I know those sirens that they test.
Yeah. They, but they announced here that when they're going to test the sirens, so that doesn't bother me. Any kind of weather don't bother me. It can be like a thunderstorm or even a severe thunderstorm, but when they say and possible tornadoes, then I can feel it all over my body. I'm starting to get a real bad anxiety attack. I get to sweating. I get to looking out the window.
Sure.
Stuff like that. And then
I wonder, Samuel, is there something that people can do in the moment to help?
Yeah, so I think that one of the biggest things that Mike is talking about is, an experience from a long time ago that mentally or emotionally, he doesn't associate that as being a long time ago. I mean, yes, he knows it was a long time ago, but I think this would be the issue of trauma. And what happens with trauma is that we have an experience that is so feeling of danger or so feeling of something really bad happening to us, or the experience of something really bad happening to us, and we lose our ability to think logically, or we lose our ability to think rationally about what to do about this. And so one of the things that I think folks like Mike can do in the potential of a storm or the sirens going off or something like that is to make sure that you've got you kind of have your process set up as to what you're going to do when a storm comes, and that means that you know where you're going to go. That means you know what you're going to take with you to where you're going to go. A bag that might have some water in it, or might have a flashlight, might have a weather radio in case you lose power. Might have some food in there in case you get trapped in your house or something like that. And I think preparing for the potential of the storm, I think emotionally what that will do is that'll help folks like Mike feel like they're taking care of this phobia or this trauma that has taken place. I think fundamentally one of the biggest things that we can do is to make sure that we have others around us that can help kind of shoulder the burden of these panics or these feelings of trauma or a phobia that Mike was talking about, because I think when we get into the feelings that the panic might set in or the anxiety might set in, your heart rate begins to increase. It's really helpful to have others around you that can kind of give you a hug or be present with you, that can kind of help calm you down so that you're not all by yourself. If you are by yourself, what I would recommend is calling somebody on the phone and letting them know that you're kind of in the middle of a potential storm, and ask if they would just stay on the phone with you. That way you're not alone and dealing with it, because loneliness is a big enough burden on its own, but much less when we've got a storm bearing down on us.
Samuel, great action steps so far. We're going to take a quick break. When you come back with us, we'll be answering more of your calls, 737-7587.